mic, or are we just gonna hear her? Sarah?
Madam Mayor, it is 6:01 and we are live. I apologize.
I'm here, but I don't, there we go.
Okay. All right, great, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Let me see this. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the January 30th, 2024 Utility City Commission meeting. Mr. Diaz will, can we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Betty Rush,
Here.
Vice Mayor Christopher McVoy,
Here.
Commissioner Sarah Maliga,
Present.
Commissioner Kimberly Stokes,
Here.
Commissioner Ronaldo Diaz.
Here. Great. Commissioner Diaz will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Are there any additions, deletions, or reordering?
No, but can
I had none, Madam Mayor, but I know that Commissioner Stokes had one.
Okay.
well, I just wanted to clarify that as part of, it's up to you all, if you want to add something before the PCA update to talk about the balance in the rate stabilization fund, or just keep that as part of that update.
And right now
So
it's,
unfinished business B is about just
Right.
setting the rates,
Mhm.
but it doesn't include any transfer to the rate stabilization fund. So we can either keep that bundled together, or we can add an item.
well, to vote, I mean, as it is now, we're not voting, I think it's an update, is that not? right?
No, we are, there is
You're
a
on it.
suggested motion on the table, but I think, so, well, all right, let's just, can we add
Let me just,
before the PC update?
Does it have to be separate? Because to me, they kind of go
It
hand in
doesn't
hand.
have to be separate, I just want you all
I'm
to,
not seeing what you're talking about,
the PC update,
right?
all right, so just a heads up, when we get to that item,
Right.
we also need to talk about the rate stabilization fund. So,
Which is,
well, it's included in the backup, so, but it's
Yeah, okay.
not part of the motion.
all right, that's fine. So do you want to just add
All
the
right.
rates? Yeah, that's fine.
So, motion to approve agenda as is.
Okay.
Second?
Are we amending, I apologize, are we amending the agenda or are we just going to include that as a part of the existing discussion? Was
We
that
can
the,
do it as part of the PCA update.
Okay,
All right.
thank you very much. So, the first up is presentations of the electric utility update by Mr. Ed Liberty, our electric utility director.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. For the record, Ed Liberty, Electric Utility Director. I'll just give a few quick little updates, just so you have a sense of things that are going on in background. First of all, FMPA Solar, the latest update I have as of a few days ago is that we can expect to see power flowing to us in August of this year. So that's good, from the Rice Creek facility. And then the second facility under FMPA Solar 2 will follow in July of next year. That's the documents that I've been given. That's from a site referred to as Whistling Duck. The first one that we'll see is from Rice Creek. And then later on in 2025, we'll get the rest of our solar entitlement, which will get us up to about, I think it's 59 point something megawatts, close to 60 megawatts of solar by the end of 2025. So that's the latest update I have. So,
And Rice Creek was when?
I have a date of August of '24 as the commercial operating date. We may see power flow before that, test power and stuff like that, but they're showing a commercial operating date as of August of 2024.
Cool.
The delays in some of these projects, particularly the Whistling Duck site, as I understand it, are due to interconnection issues, which is a federal concern. Just delays with the utilities that they're interconnecting to wield the power, the tremendous backlog of requests that they have, and the studies that it takes to get them interconnected. But the projects are underway, and the developer is confident. And the FMPA staff is in negotiation with the developer Origis on any damages or changes to the agreement that may be needed because of missed dates.
Great.
The other thing I wanted to report on is I did enjoy a visit with OUC, Orlando Utilities Commission, to a battery energy storage site that they've developed. It's approximately an 8 megawatt battery that discharges 4 megawatts per hour over 2 hours. It's of the scale and scope and size that we would consider here under the grant award that we have. It would seem to fit pretty well We haven't done any formal sizing, but I just want to get a sense of how big is it and how much room does it take, how does it operate, what are some of the construction issues. Remarkably simple in appearance to install, really, really neat if you're a geek about this type of stuff. It's pretty cool to see. They'll be going commercial, I would expect, within the next couple of weeks on their project, and it's connected at the distribution level, as ours would be, and it's pretty cool.
How many of those would we need?
We would need one battery energy storage project. We haven't done final sizing, but it could be in that 8 megawatt range, and probably they would discharge at about 2 megawatts per hour over a 4-hour period. You can design them to charge and discharge at different rates, and of course you can have the total size varies by application. So before we actually pick what we're going to buy, we're going to have to do a study to say what's the best size and for what we need in our system, and how it would match up.
Mr. McBoy?
Quick question, roughly how big was it, ballpark size of this room, 3 times the size of this room?
They're delivered by truck, so they're about the width of a shipping container and about 60 feet long, depending on how many modules you have end to end. And then you have the inverter compartment where you're converting to AC, and then you have the transformer where you're stepping up to whatever power you're going to produce at, and there's a control module as well. But it would look like a string of 3, 4, 5 shipping containers end to end, or you can put them side by side, and then all that goes into and comes out of are all underground, so you don't see any wires coming in overhead into them, stuff like that.
And did they tell you what the battery technology was? Were they using?
I believe that was lithium ion. They had a very spirited RFP. They had assistance in issuing the RFP, if I remember correctly. I want to say they had around 12 to 16 responses that they evaluated, and came up with what they thought was a pretty competitive project.
Cool.
It's so funny, because, it's great to have solar, but on the other hand, all the mining, I mean, there's a downside to everything, and, countries are now, I know Norway is protesting the fact that we have all the lithium mining that's gonna happen, it's gonna be really careful of those consequences. Nothing is perfect.
Correct.
Nothing is perfect.
Correct.
Okay.
We have a ways to go, but first we'll have to nail down the final grant award and the contract with the DOE, and then we'll have to do a study to determine what size battery and where on our system would be best to place it to get the amp, and then how to actually use it. But it's very clear that with the amount of solar that we bought, we're going to make a significant dent in our carbon emissions during daylight hours.
Right.
But as we all know, we bought more with the intent of selling it or storing it certainly during the summer months, we'll use it all. But during those winter months, 5 to 6 months, kind of not summer months, we're going to have to either sell some excess or store it until we grow into it. To really make a big dent in our carbon footprint beyond just daytime, we want to displace carbon fuels that we might use at night. And that's what storage will help demonstrate. This is not going to be able to take all of it. We don't have a grant. I don't think the dollars will go that far, but it'll be significant and an important demonstration.
Great, thank you.
Cool.
Exciting.
Other things, and I'll continue to keep you posted on that. I mentioned the grant process. We continue to refine our estimates and working on optimizing the bond dollars that we have with the grant dollars that we expect, and how to time the projects so we get the maximum leverage. The goal for us is to not leave any of the grant money that might be awarded on the table, because we can't match it. So we're working on putting all of that together and then bringing that to you, so you have a sense of what we're suggesting in terms of priorities, which projects to move first and second or third or fourth, and how to maximize that. We do anticipate that there will be a second, or it'll be our third bond issue. I think we had all understood that there would be more bond issues to continue with our system hardening and reliability improvement program, which would now overlap with obtaining the match to move the grant projects forward. So we're working on those details as well. The city's financial advisors and finance have been involved, but there's just some big picture thinking on what the timing of that might be and how that fits into our finances. So staff is working on that. The apprentice program has, I think we've reported that it began. One of our apprentices is ahead of the other 3. That apprentice has gotten a good report card, if you will. The committee met last week, and he's progressing well, and they're all progressing well through the program, and we look forward to continuing the program. The linemen are also preparing for the rodeo at the end of February. They've had a fair amount of time practicing. They were practicing 5 or 6 days a week. I think we're cutting back to about 3 days a week. They'll continue to practice. We want them to do well, but more importantly, we want them to feel comfortable doing that in a competition. They've set up a good training yard out of what we call Canal Substation, and they've been practicing out there. I have not witnessed the practices myself, but the folks say that they're getting better and better. So,
My apologies, Director Liberty. I was told it's a little, you can barely hear on Zoom, so if you could speak up just a little louder for us.
wow, I'm talking straight into the microphone in here, so. Okay, so we are moving along on the rodeo. The tie line construction, the second connection to FP&L, construction continues. Steel is now going up. So for those of you that have not asked for a tour yet and still want a tour, certainly let me know. We'll get you a tour of that site, and we'll take you to some of the other projects that we have underway. If you're interested in a tour, I would have set aside probably about 2 hours, maybe 3 hours to get a little overview and spend some time talking with the folks, and then see some of these facilities. It's pretty interesting to see, at least from an engineer's point of view. The new control room is probably about 95+% complete. The team has been over there to see what they're going to be moving into. We are working on setting up a meeting with our water department to basically get the house rules and have our people get an orientation of the building and how we're all going to coexist in that space. And we thank the water department for hosting us and giving up the training room that they had there.
Oh, good night.
To house the facility. I'm sure there's a bill coming for it, but it's coming along really well. So if anybody wants to see that, it's a worthwhile thing to come and see. We will at some point when it's open. We'll do a more formal dedication and an opening of it. But a lot of the monitors are now live. The assistant director of system operations, his office is operational. He can operate from there if he needs to, and he can see everything. But the main control room is still coming along. And good news for everybody, we all want to just keep reinforcing this for the public, is the Florida Municipal Electric Association rate survey is out for December. We remain in that number 8 position, in the range of about $18 to $25 cheaper than FPL, depending on what you include in the comparison, but we are clearly cheaper than our neighbors. So we know that's important. Now, and probably say we've heard this before, but we want to keep reinforcing it so people do appreciate how much work has gone into the fact that we have electric rates that are competitive.
And we do have reserves.
And good point. And we do have a well-funded storm reserve, or rather, we have a slightly funded storm reserve and a well-funded rate stabilization fund. So it's important for folks to know that we're in good shape there.
Mr. Moore?
Can you repeat those numbers again and clarify? The number 8 position means we are the cheapest or the most expensive, or and how do you, what's the scale?
Yeah, if you were to rank 37 or 38 utilities in the state, we are from lowest to highest in terms of rates. It's actually in terms of bill for the 1,000 kilowatt hour customer.
Right.
We're number 8 from the bottom, meaning that there's
A few that are
there's
cheaper
only 7 that are lower than us.
and 30 odd that are higher.
Correct.
Thank you.
correct.
And the number, you said,
It's between $17 to $25, $18 to $25 in that range. It's hard to tell because the comparisons are not completely apples to apples or oranges to oranges. We do on occasion, if an employee volunteers an electric bill, we do run the electric bills side by side, and what we see in actual bills do show that we are substantially lower and very competitive.
just for context, a 1,000 kilowatt hour bill for us is running what, about 120, 110?
Well, off the top of my head, I think it's about $114 plus
And so that
plus taxes,
17
so it might be a little bit more with taxes.
17 to 25 that's a pretty noticeable chunk
It
less
is.
than, you know.
It is. That's the benchmark study that's issued each month by the Florida Municipal Electric Association. It relies on all utilities voluntarily in entering their data and entering it correctly. But we go by that study. They publish that monthly. That's available online. That's a publication that's available. Anybody wants to go take a look at it.
I have a question. That's for the residential. We're talking about residential.
Correct. Residential 1,000 kilowatt hour customer. That's correct.
Comparable, are our commercial rates still pretty high?
Our commercial rates are still higher than FPL. I haven't looked at the actual difference because there's so many different commercial classes that are referenced. The gap has closed over the years, but we are still higher than FPL on the commercial side.
But we're working on it.
Yeah, we're working on it.
Thank you.
Oh, and one more thing too, I was looking at the dashboard for our electric vehicle charging program. We're doing well on that, sponsorship or subscribership continues to grow. We're now up to over 90 different customers are using the public charging stations, not just once per month, we assume multiple times per month. But there's at least 90 different vehicles that are using those charging stations every month, and it seems to be growing, so that's good. And that completes my off-the-cuff comments for you for tonight.
Thank you very much. Up to our water utilities. That was pretty funny up north when it got so cold and all the electric vehicles couldn't work.
Well, I think some of those have been delivered here with snowbirds, and they're now charging
They're
here.
doing it here,
That's-
yeah, that
Which we like.
I lived in Minnesota and Vermont, so I read that with a little bit of amusement. Good evening.
Good evening, Sam Heddy for the record, Lake Worth Beach Water Utility Director. Good evening, Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor McGloy, City Commissioner. I would like to first start out by expressing my gratitude to the employees, water utility employees that worked over the long December and January timeframe for the holidays. Their commitment to continuity of service is always a pleasure to see that we do have employees working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So whenever you go there and turn on your tap and your no goodies go somewhere, somebody's out there managing that for you. So always remember that if you would, please.
Thank you for mentioning that, and we also agree with you. It's like, it's the invisible people that just keep the whole thing running, which
It
is wonderful.
Continuity of service is what it's about. I would also like to express my gratitude to Mr. Liberty and the T&D crew for their efforts to enhance the water treatment plant's electric reliability. The crew had to work on some overhead lines that were affected by the 6th Avenue South and the I-95 roadway work that's going on there. And the T&D crew, went ahead and carried out their work on that, but they also carried it all the way through to the water plant's main feeder line. So thank you, Ed, and thank you, the crew that helps me sleep better at night. So,
Teamwork.
yeah, teamwork, exactly. I want to also thank Alyssa Kirk for her role in helping me secure the EPA Community Change Grant. That was a big help. She's here, she's not here. Thank you, Alyssa, I appreciate that. The grant will need to focus on 2 strategies, pollution reduction and climate action. So we met on Zoom today with the EPA. They went over their guidelines. So now it's time to start focusing on what projects we may have to settle on. And those will come back to the commission to finalize as well. One of the things that I'd like to do is I'd like the commission to sign the commitment to excellence for the water utility.
Well, I love it. We're going to bring us something interesting.
And
It's
so,
been a show and tell. Oh, that's so cool. And where will that hang?
this will hang at the water, one of them will hang at the water plant. And my idea was that anybody who comes there that is committed to excellence, and they sign this and date it, and so you'll be the first to sign and date it tonight on your commitment to excellence, and obviously, Jamie, I'll leave it in the back on the table, or I can come back and pick it up in the morning, but it's huge, because it shows your commitment to the utility. I have a pen here when I'm ready to do that, so.
Thank you.
Couple of the items, just for overview before I get to the memorandum. On the water, new well 17 and 18, we're in engineering design. We've looked at a multitude of locations. Some of the locations, I've narrowed it down to 6 now, that I think we can at least look at for water quality, but I'll have to bring them to Jamie also to make sure that we're not picking up some land or a piece of property that, unbeknownst to me, I didn't know we were selling or had other plans for.
And those were monitoring wells, you said?
These are actually surficial aquifer wells, 17 and 18, yeah. And funny you mentioned that, I will have to probably drill a new monitoring well. Well number 9 is kind of a funny well. Something happened to it multiple years ago. We found it here recently that we shouldn't have probably been using that well as a monitoring well, so, but we'll probably end up having to drill a new monitoring well there in this place. We have upgrades to the water plant you'll see tonight as part of your, approval process. We've done a bunch of rehabilitations for the manholes, for the, sewer. And, you'll start seeing that around town, cordoning off, streets to do that. 18th Avenue, South, our ongoing pump station. Anybody wants to take my role over there, you'd be more than glad. There's been a few hiccups that haven't been smooth as I anticipated. But, the owner of the lot and all the other owners, I think now we're kind of in a friendly place.
You met with them, I got some
Oh, I
emails,
met
you've
with them.
really been very proactive with them,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah, they've been, I'm, on their taxes now as a
Dependent.
dependent now, so. Some of the initiatives, other initiatives I have going on is, the nitrification action plan on the north end of town. We're looking at doing a SCADA master plan for, cybersecurity. And, we're looking at converting the, ammonia, at the plant. Right now it's gaseous ammonia, we need to go to anhydrous ammonia, less dangerous. And so, we'll be coming to you, for a proposal for an engineering firm to do that as well, so. Anyways, as we move along here, I wanted to, questions always come to me about what grants have we applied for, what grants have we been awarded, what grants are we working on? So I put together a little list here, kind of outlining, I have people helping us look for grants, Stantec's helping us look for grants, Holtz Engineering is helping us look for grants. So I have as many feelers out there as I possibly can to help us gather grants and get approval for grants and making sure that we're writing grants the right way. So this one here is the newest of the bunch. Is it's the Environmental Protection Agency the Climate Justice Community Change Grant Program, similar to what Ed and I think is done in the past. And so this was really, with Alyssa's help, it fell right in our lap. It was a cut and paste, and we have a community that fits the mold of what the EPA is really looking for as far as community grant programs. And so we will move forward on, like I said earlier, we'll move forward on figuring out where and what project that's going to look at. Normally on a tier 1 municipality like we're at, they won't hand out any more than $20 million in one single project, but I think we can probably do what we can do with $20 million if we can get all of that. But I'll do what I can.
Don't spend it all in one
Yeah.
place. What kind of projects would that look like?
Well, we have a project that we've looked at high level over on 12th Avenue, or no, 6th Avenue South, B, C, and D Street for flood control over there. The streets flood horribly. There's no curbing on the roadway. The roadway in itself is flat. There's no swells. That would be a perfect fit for something like this.
So these are the kind of grants that would actually have an effect on the lifestyle of our residents.
That's exactly right. So they have to fit that mold, but yes, that's exactly what we're looking
That's
at.
kind of what I was looking for.
Community resiliency,
Okay,
yes.
great.
And so, I just wanted to bring this to your attention, and if you had any questions from what we do, what we are approved of, and what we have in the back, I'm here to answer any of your questions.
Mr. McCoy?
Interesting, you mentioned the B and C. I'm trying to visualize over by 6, but that strikes me as sort of the top of the ridge. So you wouldn't think it would have bad flooding problems, but
You wouldn't think, but the road is
it
flat
does.
up there, and there's no swells, and there's no
Yeah,
curb line.
it's-
South of
we're
6.
short on swales in this town.
South of 6, it flattens out a little bit.
Yeah.
A thought to keep in mind on that one is flooding in the I guess it's going the other way, FE, maybe as far west as D, sort of 2nd, 3rd north and downtown, that area. I think I
Okay.
mentioned a couple times that there's, I thought it was fairly localized to one building, but it's not when I've been out there during storms. So that might be an area to keep in mind. That is a bit lower, and I guess it's sort of flat. Oh, and the other was, this is this is just one that I keep reminding, let's keep some way of funding, a change in the access at, I wanna say it's 18th North.
16th Avenue South, 16th Avenue North.
I can never remember whether it's
18th
16th or
Avenue North,
18th, but one of those that has the railing. Let's sit down, you and I sometime, and sketch out, maybe with some of the residents, access for paddle boats, kayaks, that sort of thing, so that we can get that finally going. The drainage work, everybody's thrilled
Yeah,
with.
no,
The
that's great
access
over
work,
there.
not so much.
Yeah, and we're looking at 16th Avenue North is our next project, similar to what happened at 18th Avenue North. And so that would be a opportune time to sit down and talk.
Well, this one is to retrofit the one that's
Oh,
already in place.
Yeah, okay,
Because we put up a nice storm wall
Yes.
and then a nice, beautiful aluminum railing on it,
yes,
which is great until you want to haul a kayak over it. And so some scheme to deal with that I've had requests for that for quite a while, so
we,
we'll get together on
during the Waterways Committee Board that we have here, they're looking at a multitude of
it.
items, access, just like what you're talking about. So,
Good.
once we're able to pin down their top 10 projects, and if that's one of them, we'll bring them back and we'll talk about access and what we get to do to go about making access happen.
Okay,
Mr. Diaz?
It's helpful that on that board is our premier kayak vendor.
Yes.
So they have great insight. So I have, it may be somewhat of a fun question, but it's a general question, because you've been here several months, I think you're in gear, you're comfortable, and then on top of that, the last couple months have been interesting precipitation wise, to say the least. And that's your forte, so I'm just like really curious, because we are gonna talk about the storm fund eventually.
Yes.
But like, just kind of high level in general, have you been surprised by anything? Did you come here and like learn something, and did all this interesting El Nino that we've been having and will probably go on for another month or two? I'm sure you've been challenged in some ways over the last couple months.
The last 2 months,
Yeah.
it's been a very high rain event for the in December and some of January. I haven't really, just to be honest with you, some of these localized areas are, sometimes it happens and it floods and sometimes it doesn't. And so it's really just been a smattering of localized flooding, and when we do go out there, it's normally gone by the time we get out there. We have an issue over on, I think it's 1600 N Street. But it looked like it was a man-made issue, so we've had to go over there a couple times to help them out. 9th Avenue, South, after we initially went over there and started investigating, we haven't had any more problems over there, so it's,
scared it off.
it's, it's half of one and 60 other. I do see some issues that we have down Dixie here.
Oh, yeah.
And
Publix.
I know it's not my issue, it's DOT, but it is my issue because it's my residence issue. So those are items that we'll have to address with the DOT. And, general, maintenance of DOT altogether, down, 12th Avenue, down, south.
Yeah.
Those curb returns there, I don't think anybody realized those are DOT curb returns, the stormwater inlets. And so they've never been
Service.
service, and so, people are probably thinking that we're supposed to service them, and now it's the other guy's supposed to do it, so these are things that I'm finding out just through day in and day out operation and trying to touch base with the residents as often as I can, so.
Another place that floods a lot is the west end, coming over the bridge, Gulf, and it's,
Yeah.
the lawns there are beautiful.
Yeah,
Because they get
Well,
instant, little condos there, it's lovely,
yeah,
but that's been a problem. as well.
we have
I'm sure you know
that, we have that catch basin always down at the end, that nitrification box down there. And so it's doing what it's supposed to do, but there is a lot of water standing in that area all the time, even at just a little 1/4 inch rain.
There's a need there, and unfortunately it looks like we didn't get the money for the golf course PD, but, there's probably other avenues to look into that, cause
We
that's.
haven't given up hope.
We haven't given up, but that's, you know, that's a primary look, cause I certainly get messages and questions in that area in particular, that street floods up to your knee. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done for sure, I personally, I'm happy you're here because stormwater is your specialty.
Yeah.
And,
And we've talked to the bonding agency, they know that we're looking at having to do something rate-wise, because I can't continue the
patchwork.
patchwork and what ifs and if comes, they know that, so, we're looking at that in the future.
Well, I know that Sarah's up in Tallahassee right now, and that's one of the things that she's really scrapping for, is to, you know, get that money back on the table.
Yeah, great. Okay, anyways, anybody have any questions on what we've applied for, been denied for?
And that's on the website as well, the backup?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, great, thank you very much. Moving right along, public participation of
Madam Mayor?
non-agenda items. Madam Clerk, do you have
Hello,
any?
Mayor? Hello?
Hello?
Can you hear me? I just wanted to make sure that, Director, Liberty and Director Heady, I just want to say thank you. And I asked if, Ms. Shayla could get me a copy of what was just passed out, and she said she would email it to me.
Okay, great, thank you. Keep working up there, keep fighting. Okay.
Between that and the Lions loss 2 nights ago, it's been rough up here.
Say that again?
I said between Tallahassee and the horrible Bills and the Lions losing, it's been a rough couple days
Oh,
up here.
yeah, sorry about that. They did a good showing, though, they did a good showing. Okay, Madam Clerk, do you have any public comments of non-agenda items?
I do not, Madam Mayor.
Is there anybody, I have no blue cards, no blue cards? All right, so moving right along, approval of the minutes of the November 28th, 2023 meeting. Mr. Boyd?
I usually don't mention much of anything in the minutes, but, and maybe my memory is bad, it wouldn't be the first time, but my recollection was that, and I thought it was the November meeting, but maybe it was a different one, that we had discussed, an approach that Commissioner Stokes had brought forward on the PCA analysis that, as my recollection again, was that it was looking at things from an angle of dollars per megawatt hour, both what it cost us and what were revenues and expenses in that way. And I thought, my recollection was that we all found it helpful and that we asked that it would be included in the PCA things, both as a table and graphically. And I don't see that in the minutes, so I'm wondering if we can figure out whether it's my memory that I forgot wrong, that it wasn't in November, or that it was in November and it just didn't get mentioned.
I guess we
Maybe Commissioner
have
Stokes remembers.
I cannot remember the form. I remember the
Remember
spirit
that,
of the discussion, and I don't know if we gave direction or if we took an actual vote or, you know,
I
how.
don't think we voted, but I
Right.
think we did give consensus direction, and since I didn't see it in the PCA backup section, I thought, well, I think there was general enthusiasm for it, so
There was.
let's give some direction that that's what we'd like to
Mayor,
add in there.
Mr. Liberty?
for the record, Ed Liberty, Utility Director, that is a good point. I think it came up in one-on-one, a suggestion, and then we brought the documents to the meeting and the group did like them. And I believe that Assistant Director Brian King has added those documents for future discussion. So we'll be looking at things at dollars per megawatt hour. But I think that was the genesis of it. It came from the one-on-one and then came for discussion here. And it was well received, so our intention would be to continue that.
Okay, thank you. So do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Electric utility storm fund discussion. Somebody come up with that.
Yes, Madam Mayor, we have with us tonight our rates consultant, Craig Shepard from Leidos, who has provided some materials which will be helpful in helping you set policy on how you would like to see a storm fund set up and how you might fund that. So I'll turn it over to Craig, and if we can, should be a presentation for that. It should be storm fund. Clerk, I know that we did provide this
Yes,
to,
Mr.
oh, there we go.
Good evening, I'm Craig Shepard, Lighthouse Engineering. It's a pleasure to be back here. Talk a little bit more about Storm Fund. We have talked
Yeah,
about it
you can
before,
use
but
that, yes.
want to talk a little bit more about it.
Wait, 1 second. Sorry. Go ahead. Got it?
It's not advancing. Oh, there we go.
Okay, some of the goals of having a storm fund. We were proposing to build up a storm fund reserve to help expenses related to storm preparation and recovery. And that would be, have a fund available while waiting for FEMA reimbursement. Sometimes it takes a long time to get money back from FEMA after a storm. And even, before a storm happens, a lot of times you have to prepare for a storm, and that costs dollars. So, the idea is to use a storm fund instead of other reserves, or even worse, having to raise rates to make up for this storm damage. And we found that recently the investor-owned utilities, the IOUs, have a separate storm fund charges on customers' bills. You see the regular bill, and then you see storm charges, and they're pretty substantial. Those have been approved by the PSC. They have to file with the PSC. And so the municipal utilities include funds for storm preparation and recovery in just their general reserve fund. And you're in a little different situation. You're on the coast. We did see that Key West Utilities, Keys Energy has a storm fund and a separate charge on their bill. So you may be in the same situation as that. So we recommend, setting up a storm fund balance. And just to estimate that balance, when we looked at the last few hurricane threats, Dorian was 2.9 million, Ian was 0.9 million, Nicole was 1.6 million, so Ian and Nicole were actually in the same year. And we have talked about storm fund, and I think there is one set up, and right now it's 500,000.
We did pass an ordinance that doesn't allow us to in 1 year, though.
Doesn't allow more than one storm.
So I have a question,
Sure.
Doreen and Nicole, where at that, we didn't really have storm fund at that point, right? I forget what year they were. So that money came out of where?
It would have come out of utility fund balance, and then absent that, it would have come out of the general fund balance. I know Director Yannick is here, and he can probably add some, or correct me on that if I have it wrong, but it would have come out of fund balance.
Okay, and sometimes we ask questions just so that folks can understand what's going on. Thank you.
Yeah, these they could be rather substantial hits, and as you notice, I think if we just go forward one more slide, it gives you the dates. There we go. You can see that Ian and Nicole happened basically the same year, so you can consider that basically a $2.6 million year.
And we didn't even, a lot of, and I think people need to understand that we're calling up utilities from up north saying we need people to come down, and we have fees and hotels and things like that. So it's just preparation, even, we pray we don't get hit, but we have to prepare, hope for the best and prepare for the worst.
And just to point out, these dollars do not include internal labor costs. Okay, so what some others are doing, like I say, the IOUs have a pretty significant charge on their bills. FP&L, they have broken into two parts, a storm protection charge, and we've done some research. That includes, for storm protection, they have an undergrounding program where that helps harden their system for storms. That's 0.557 cents. And then the restoration recovery surcharge, that's for storms that have already happened and they're recovering that. So the total storm charge of FPL is $12.22 per thousand, which is pretty substantial on a customer bill.
So,
And if it's just the recovery portion, that's $6.65.
so if you were trying to compare that to what we're talking about tonight, you would probably compare it to line 2, which is the restoration recovery, which is 0.665, that's $6.65 per month for a 1,000 kilowatt hour customer on their system. They're investing $5.57 per month from a 1,000 kilowatt hour customer into hardening their infrastructure against storms. They have a second category. But what's comparable, I think, to our discussion tonight is line 2 was what they're spending on the recovery surcharge, which is at $6.65 per month.
Ms. Stokes?
Alright, I just wanna make sure I have this clear, so, alright, the first one is for hardening the system. The second one, it says recovery, so that's for,
Those were for storms that
that
actually
already
happened, and they
happened.
list, you know, the Ian and
Yeah.
Nicole.
And then, so, for this charge, because it says recovery, I get very rigid sometimes in language, but once they've recovered that amount, does this charge go away, or do they start building up for the future, and then do they change the name?
They do, recover it until they get a certain balance, and like this one, like, for Duke, they say it's through March 2024, so I think they have a timeline, how long they're gonna recover that, and then once they get that amount, that goes off the bill.
Okay, unless another storm comes along,
Unless, yeah,
right?
right.
But so it's called recovery even if, like, for us, we're not trying to recover past storms, we're trying to build up for
It's a
future
balance, right.
storms.
And I think we're also proposing to, once we get a certain amount in the balance, then
Then the
that
charge
can
goes away.
go away, right.
And
Mr. McBoy?
did they, list it as an explicit line item on their bills, both Duke and FPL?
Yes, yes,
And they're actually listing 2, it looks like.
yes, I think both of them show separately on the bill.
'Cause I personally like that idea of, helps people see, okay, you know, here's what my bill. And it's kind of interesting, and I don't know what the significance is, but when we talked earlier how we were cheaper than FPL, when you look at the difference, part of that is they're doing that
Right.
charge and we're not.
But we're doing storm protection, it's just in our base rate through paying back the bonds that we're taking out to harden.
The first one, the protection charge essentially is analogous to our SHRIP.
Very,
Some
very good
degree.
point. That's the system hardening, reliability improvement. It's almost all, but there's some stuff in there like trucks and things like that, some building work, but that's correct. Our SHRIP program would be buried in what would be line 1 there for FPL. They were able to, they also have a base energy category where they're funding their activities, but a few years ago, they were able to convince the Public Service Commission to create this separate category specifically aimed at storm hardening. And they reset that, I believe, annually based on how much they've invested into it. And they have a kind of a guaranteed rate of return on allowable spending in that category.
Ms. Stokes?
No, Mr. Diaz.
Oh, Mr. Diaz?
Yeah, and how, no matter how it's categorized, one way or another, I feel like we're paying for this, and that's kind of just really what the conversation is about. And something that I was kind of curious is, you know, it's quite a range. You're looking at basically $12 to $17 per 1,000 kilowatt, and without knowing what other investor-owned utilities charge, I'm sure there's quite a range there. Is that analogous just because of like the sheer size that they're covered, the amount of customers? Are they really doing like that much more service? You know,
They cover a wide range, and of course, you know, they cover the whole East Coast by FPL, so they're probably somewhere in the service territory gets a storm every year. Same thing with Duke, they have things come up from the Gulf. And also Tico has the same type of thing, similar type of target, Tampa Electric in the West Coast. And interesting, Keys Energy, which is
pretty low.
Right, very low, but I think it's more of a, they call it a disaster reserve and mitigation fund, sort of like what you're talking about. And theirs is only $1.35 per ton. And again, I think they build it up and then it goes away if they build up to the required balance.
Ms. Stokes?
Okay, I like that it's the disaster reserve, because what I'm hoping for is that if we, you know, start now, it's building up $1.35, and when you need it, we don't have to say, oh my gosh, now we have to go charge you $12 a month to recover this giant storm that happened overnight. So just building up small, I think in the long run helps it be more manageable for the customers.
Right.
And I think that shows here.
And especially now is a good time, your rates are low. And, you know, we're talking just some examples here. If it's, you know, $1 per month, or $2 per month, or $3 per month.
Yeah.
How could you build it up over a couple of years? You know, $1 per month for over 4 years, you get up to 1.8 million. Probably you wanna go maybe at least to $2 a month, but you get, you know, 1.8 to 3.7 after 4 years, or $3 per month. Gives you a range. I think we're just sort of in a discussion stage of, you know, what you're thinking about. And I think, you know, looking at what's happened in the past, you know, 3 million might be a good goal, at least for now.
And Craig, I believe these numbers would then be additive to the 500,000 that's already in the fund.
Right.
Right, we got a little bit of a start on it.
Right. So for example, if you look at $2 per month for 2 years, it builds up 1.8 million, but now you add to that to 500,000, that gets you to basically, you know, 2.3, 2.34. Don't forget to add that 500,000 that you already.
You already have that.
It goes fast.
Right.
I mean, seriously, I'm looking at the $2 for 4 years, you know, 3.68 million. That's a reasonable amount to have, I mean, plus the 500,000, but when we look at what for storms that didn't even happen, it was almost 4,000, you know, 3 something, so.
Right, and although we might pass legislation, there's nothing that says that during those 4 years we're building it up, that we don't have some storms.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And I think too is my suggestion on direction policy that you would state is that this would be intended for electric system recovery. Well, you have the latitude to do what you want with it as a commission set policy. But I think make it clear for the public, we're talking about restoration of the electric system from these funds. That's my assumption, but this is a policy matter for you, just to make sure that you state that or not state that up front, how you want to do that.
No, I think it's good to make it clear, but also to make people understand that it's, you know, cutting the trees away from the lines. It's not just, you know, going up to the top of the thing, it's actually making it possible to have electricity restored. And a lot of that is bringing people from other parts of the country and paying for their meals and their gas and their hotel rooms, which they get their own rooms.
Correct. The dollars that we showed for previous expenditures, that's what it was. It was the cost of the tree crews, the line crews, the hotels, the transportation, the equipment. Those numbers did not include the overtime of our own staff and the time of our own staff, so it was
And
not.
that's without a storm.
That's correct. That's correct. So I think the other way to look at this too is it gives you that working capital to go through a storm so that you've got the funds to do this regardless of what the working capital in the city's operating funds might be at any given time.
Would this include the overtime that we do, you know, our own internal costs? Could we use it for that as well?
That only if you tell us up front that you would like it to be eligible for that.
Because
think
otherwise
it
it's
would-
cutting into your other pieces of your budget.
Correct. I think it would be reasonable for you to set policy on how you would want that. And also, when we talk about a storm, do you want to define a storm? So is that what we call a named storm? Would it include a tornado? Would it include a windy, wet weekend? You know, I think that's an extreme, but I think it would help if you gave some guidance as to how, or you could just make it on a case-by-case basis. The way I view this is that staff would not touch this account without you authorizing us to touch it. So it's not something that we would use it, you'd find out later, oh yeah, we took money. No, I'd rather not have that. I'd rather have commissioners decide on
I mean, I
whether it's
watched the
eligible.
pier get torn apart in the October storm. I forget what year it was. There was not a named storm and it came upon us, and that was the end of our pier at that point. So it was very exciting, very dramatic.
Right.
Ms. Stokes, so I just, you know, how do you do that? Ms. Stokes?
I have a question about our base rate. So when we're putting in all the variables and assumptions and everything into the system, to see what we should set that at, do we assume a certain amount of damage per year, or do we set our base rate like, nope, no damage? I mean, we have damage every year. Like, do we have historical data to say, because like we're saying, this storm fund it feels like it's meant for like big name storms, but we have smaller storms every single year that we have to go out and do work with. So are we accounting for that?
I remember in the base rates, there was a line for reserves, which would include that.
It's just the reserves, but we have a goal of building up our reserves,
Right.
not,
Or it wasn't specified for storm damage.
I just seem like there's other industries that they're like, we're gonna have this much law theft, or, you know, like there's some assumption in what they built into what they charge already, but we don't have any of that built in, so.
Not of any substance. We basically just cut back on operating O&M spend as we draw down O&M and it winds up hitting fund balance.
Right. Mr. Diaz.
I think that's the most important question, right? That's the thing to discuss the most, because I look at like the examples for, you know, and the $2 in 4 years, the 3.6 plus the $500,000, that is a very comfortable number. And it's 4 years. It gives us time to build up into 4 years. Will be a little over 2 million in 2 years. And you think back, you know, what we have to deal with, and you look at the named storms that use as examples, and like they didn't even really technically touch us, and they still
Right.
have an impact. And so, and unfortunately, like I think the answer to Commissioner Stokes' question is, you know, those goalposts are constantly being moved, and I'm curious what's the industry, what do they look at? Is it now? I noticed something that is often talked about is now, you know, sustained mile per hour winds. That's kind of a big determining factor, because you can get a Saturday afternoon thunderstorm with 40, 50 mile an hour sustained winds now, and that's not as uncommon as it was 5 years ago. So, you know, I think it's really important. I appreciate like the money not moving in those cases without the commission giving the go-ahead, but also I think it's critical to have some sort of guideline. I just don't really know where to set those guidelines, because I'm not sure what the industry is looking at, because it's changing so much. I mean,
Well, I think, if I may respond, I think the easiest one is to rule out, is to state right away which ones you absolutely would fund, which would be a named one. That's an obvious one. So, I think you'd have to look at the level of damage, the impact on the budget, whether there was, what we call tornado activity, which would not have been named, but it would have created significant damage other than just, it was just a windy day. So I think if it's a tornado that sweeps through town, we would want to access the storm fund for something like that.
and is that measured by like dollar amount damage, or is that measured in number of customers like immediately completely disconnected because of, you know, like what was it last month? There was a tornado in like downtown Fort Lauderdale, and
I think it would do it by the level of damage, because it could be the tornado passed through and affected, 30 customers, or as it passed through and affected 3,000 customers for 4 days, just running as an example, if it was a major, or you might affect 30 customers for, a half a day, at the other extreme if it was very light. So I think it would be related more to the number of customers, the extent of the damage, and the length, maybe not length so much, but the dollars involved in fixing it. So it's hard to put a very, hard line in the sand, so I think that requires some judgment, and maybe even how the budget is doing at that point. How is the utility budget doing that on a year-to-date basis? Can it absorb it, or do you want to husband your resources and just kind of hold on to them and say, "Now we won't touch it for this, but we'll absorb it out of operating funds"? And if we have a very good operating fund balance that year, you might say, "Let's absorb it out of operating funds."
So what are you looking for us to do tonight?
Get educated.
Well, besides
Right.
being educated.
No decision, we're
No
not looking for
action, okay.
decision, other than to continue to guide us towards something that we could bring to you for approval, and maybe one meeting is not enough to do that, and we didn't want to put you on the spot, so you have to.
Straightforward though, I mean, we need to have this fund. I think in terms of, named storms, tornadoes, those kinds of things, that's pretty obvious.
And the amount of money that you think would be appropriate, and the duration over which you want to build that fund up. I would probably not go beyond 3 years. I think 2 years would be good. It's hard to imagine going more than a 2 or 3 year period where we don't have a hurricane that we're worried about, and then we run out of letters in the alphabet at some point. Some seasons, right, they said it's gonna be a 20+ storm season. We've been fortunate, but I would probably not go beyond 2-3 years at the very most to build up the fund.
Although we have 4 years up there.
Yeah, we just wanted to give you a bracket, you know, to look at.
I like the idea of having some money in the bank. So, you know, that's the kind of thing that when it happens, you need it. And so I would go for something that got us at least, never mind the 500,000, at least to the 3 million point, and plus the 500. I don't know how many commissioners.
And I think you'll also have a policy decision, maybe more towards budget season, as to whether these funds are considered restricted or not restricted, and how that affects the cash on hand calculations that Stantec does in the financial modeling. Because you'll have cash on hand intended for storms, but the working capital in the Stantec models is intended to give you cash on hand to deal with things where your revenues might be impacted for some time. So there's a policy discussion here. It doesn't have to be had tonight. That's more of a discussion to have in the summer months with the Director of Finance and Stantec and Davenport, because you're affecting, you may be holding more money than it's not being reflected in the working cash on hand. So that's a policy discussion.
All right, we've got 3 lights, and I'll start with Mr. Mayfield.
Could you go back, Craig, to this slide of the different, I think it was actually 2 slides, but, one forward, what did Keys call it?
Yeah, that was a good name. I think that was more.
Keys Energy Storage Research, right?
It's more all of it.
And what, just so I'm clear, most of these except Keys did 2 line items. The one that's most directly comparable to what we're talking about now is the second of those in each case.
Correct.
And just eyeballing those, ignoring Keys, because I don't know why they're at 1.5, that seems, I mean, the Keys are kind of exposed to stuff. But, so I don't know what's going on. But the other 3, FPL, Duke, and Pico, you're looking at $7, $13, $10, considerably higher than what we're talking about here. So my inclination would be to go to the higher end, you know, maybe $4 a bill, $4 per thousand, and as far as how long you do it, I kind of, you know, I would make that somewhat adjustable. If we get 2 storms 2 months after we start boosting it up, I think we're gonna keep going. If we get very lucky and we fill it up, then back off. That's why I'd kind of like the idea, if it's possible to do, to on the bill, list the line item, and then have some sort of, you know, like those fundraising thermometers kind of thing, something that would tell you, here's where we are. We're doing pretty good on this. We're gonna back off. We expect to back off pretty soon, or, oh boy, we're kind of at the bottom here. We need to keep going. I think that, yeah, that's my thoughts on it.
Provide some transparency on the.
Right, and then
Yeah.
show what's been spent, you know, a little
Yep.
accounting on it.
I
Then,
think
could we do that?
we can put it on the bill. I have to check with, and we're running out of space on the
Space,
bill,
yeah.
but it's certainly something we should have on the website.
Right,
Uh,
right.
so-
Yeah,
so,
actually, we
Yeah,
could,
which would be, so people can see
That's
right
a
away.
good idea. That's actually probably a
Yeah.
better idea.
And my guess is that the financial analysts for future bond issues would be pleased to see that we have these types of reserves.
Oh,
I
yeah.
would think so too.
Yeah, both
Shows-
stabilization fund and storm fund.
Yeah, I would think.
Okay, Ms. Stokes?
Good idea with the fundraising thermometer. I agree with half of the other stuff you said. I'm not sure that I feel justified right now going all the way to 4, but, my thoughts were around choosing a date to end this on feels, I would feel better saying like, we're gonna charge this many dollars per kilowatt hour or 1,000 kilowatt hour. And, this is our goal that the
Right.
thermometer is going to be trying to fill up to. And when we hit that goal, the charge goes away. And so if we get a giant storm that year, our thermometer is gonna drop and we will have to continue
Kick
maybe
it back in.
keeping that charge longer than anticipated, or we get a big, you know, we don't want this, but like someone's using more, like we got more developments online, more energy coming and things, so we fill the goal faster, you know, whatever happens, I think the goal should be on our target dollar amount, not based on time. Because like you
No, I
said,
agree.
things can happen in between, and, so I was leaning more towards the $2 with a target of 3 million, and once that's reached, we can drop it, and then if anything ever happens and there's a giant spike in natural gas and we have to raise the PCA, we can maybe consider lowering that, or, depending on circumstances, I don't wanna be too rigid. But right now, like you said, energy costs are low, now's the time to start building these funds.
Mr. Diaz.
You know, we're talking about storms and climate, maybe let's not use the thermometer analogy, let's use something a little bit less, a little bit less gloomy. You know, I think Mr. Liberty, I was leaning towards the $2 as well, and that's because if you factor in the 500,000, that means basically in about 2.5-ish years, we'll be close to where we need to be. And looking at, I agree with Mr. Liberty about, like, you think about what happens to us, and right now we're effectively kind of 3-year increments, and even that is pushing it these days. So it's like the faster that we get to that 3 million, the better. And so I think the other thing to think about, and maybe this is another conversation, is we also probably don't necessarily have to pick one rate and commit to it for the 3 years. We can start and then scale it back. Depending on how, not that we're all doing perfectly well, but, depending on other circumstances and whatnot, just to get us to that goal quicker. But I think getting there in 2.5-ish years is pretty reasonable. And, we just hope that this El Nino, calms us down for a couple of years, so.
Which the $3 would get us there faster, and
And then we can set it back.
Ms. Malenko, we can't see you on the screen right now, so I just didn't know if you were desperately.
She has
trying
her hand up, Madam Mayor.
Okay, good, which we can't see, so thank you.
Thank you for that, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Shayla. My concern is there a cap currently? And everything is changing, obviously, up here in Tallahassee with what we can do and what we can't do. Is there a cap on how much we can hold in reserves? If you mentioned that, I couldn't hear. It's really hard on Zoom.
Not that I know, I don't think there's a legislative cap or, they're not strictly regulated by the PSC at this point.
We are the PSC for us.
That's right. I don't think so.
So I think the answer's,
So, yeah, I would just want to make sure that we don't have a cap by the state. Again, because one of the things that they're taking away from us right now is the ability to charge a higher percentage rate to outside the district, outside servicing municipality. And there's a lot of things coming down that are going to affect us financially. And before we set this policy, I would just like to make sure that there is nothing in the books right now stating what the cap is that we can have. Is it a percentage of sales? Is it a percentage of energy? Just making sure that we don't supersede that and get ourselves in trouble.
thank you, but I think we got our answer.
I think, as far as I know, there's no cap at this point.
And there might even be something to be said for us having something on the books before they
Before they
preempt
do
us.
something. Okay, thank you so much.
So did we give guidance, $2, $3?
I'd like to start with 3 and get it going. We can always lower it.
I'm okay with 3 too.
3. Commissioner Malenko, you okay with $3?
I'm good with $3.
Alrighty. Everybody else?
I have a question, I forgot, I had it in there. I'm good with 3, I have a question. How long does this take to get added? Because this isn't, like, right now, we already have a PCA charge, so we can adjust that usually a month after this meeting. How long would it take to get a new item added to the bill? And once we actually, because we haven't voted officially on this yet, but once the vote happens, like if it was next month, how long would it take to actually see that show up on our bill?
I have to go back and check with customer service, but when we started, for example, the PCA adjustments, they wanted a good 4 or 5 weeks because they had not made adjustments before. Now that they've made probably 3 of them, they've gotten better at it. I think a couple of weeks. I did ask many months ago whether we could add another line to the bill, and I was told yes, we could.
Like the April bill then?
Excuse me?
If we act in March, then
It would be the April bill, or if we act in
February.
February. After February,
Right.
it would be April 1 or mid-month March,
Okay.
if we wanted to do that. But I'll check with customer service and we'll get back to you through the city manager's office with an email on that.
Thank you, Mr. Diaz.
I just wanted to close out. Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Mr. Liberty, for this. This is a big deal, and this is like, I know Ed and I have often talked about certain things that happen that really, like, we wish were just like plastered all over the news because they're a big deal and it should have happened, a decade or so ago. And this is definitely one of those things. This is a tremendous deal. I'm so happy it's finally happening and taking off. And it really is big news. I think we can put out our press releases and stuff. I don't think it's not dramatic enough. Nobody's gonna write about it, but we should be, I think, really proud of this.
Again, it's teamwork. Thank you. Okay, so you're gonna come back to us in February with proposed, you'll meet with us individually, in the meantime, and we'll come hopefully vote in February. Yes, Mr. Liberty? Huh?
Yes, yes, yes.
Nobody listens to me.
No, I wrote it down already, I'm thinking PCA next.
Okay, great. So yeah, so if we can come back in February and get it going, that would be great. Thank you, Fred. Next up, our PCA update.
Do you wanna discuss first and then make the motion?
What, for the storm fund?
For the PCA?
Yeah, okay, what, is it an update, we're gonna act tonight?
Yeah.
Alright, go sorry, so okay, but there's a lot of variables on this.
Yes, I'm happy either way.
Let's have our update and then we can, yeah.
Okay, once again, for the record, Ed Liberty, Electric Utility Director, I have tonight in the audience Brian King, our Assistant Director. He'll join me up here, right, Brian? He does all the math on this.
He dressed for the occasion, though, I like it.
I think,
He's 40 tonight.
To Commissioner Stokes's thoughts, one of the items that is not explicitly called for, but is something that should be discussed tonight, is the current PCA balance that we have, if you will, in that checking account, because it's grown to the point where it's substantial. And the thought is, should we move perhaps $1 million, and Commissioner Stokes will have to leave a discussion on that, over to the stabilization fund. But what we have seen happen is that our PCA balance in what we call the checking account is growing. As we discussed in the one-on-ones, we've had a combination of a little bit higher load in October, November. December was not as high, but we've seen the decrease in gas prices from where they were, natural gas prices, not gasoline, but natural gas prices.
Can I put a graph on the screen or something first, a table?
Okay.
You love a good graph.
We do.
She
Well,
feels,
for
they
everyone
feel
listening,
comfortable
too.
with graphs.
We have it in our backup, but
There
for
you go.
whoever's
What-
watching.
Where's Alfonso?
He just left.
Huh?
Thank you, Yana.
I'll share it.
Okay.
Thank you.
And the graphs, if you will, are towards the back of the presentation, towards the back of the backup.
Page 24 is some, and then from there, there's several.
Oh, Alfonso's back.
There you go.
See, as soon as you, the PCA item, we just want to bring that up.
Maybe
It'll look like
PCA balance?
page 27.
PCA balance. I thought it was all in one.
Well, it's a folder, but then within the folder that.
Okay, that, and then a graph. There should
Then
be,
page numbers.
it wasn't all part of one continuous presentation?
No, these are PDFs. This was just a folder with a
Okay.
PDS file, so the revenue expenses, rates.
Just say revenues versus expenses.
What did you delete?
No, I'll bet it's because I downloaded it.
And we need one that looks like this.
So let's open up.
Yes.
Okay, let's put that one up, let's put that one up for a minute. Let's put this,
This one?
hold on a second, okay, so this slide is worth showing because it shows the actual balance in
I'm
the-
sorry.
in the stabilization fund today, so the public can see that we have $2.5 million in the stabilization fund, rate stabilization fund. And you see the dotted lines at the bottom and the dotted line at the top. We refer to those internally, if you will, as the swim lanes or the lane that we want to stay within. And right now, we have $2.5 million in the stabilization fund. the next graph, if we can, I think is one that Commissioner Stokes is referring to. There should be another one, should be a different
How
graph.
long did it take for us to get to that point? When did we start accumulating that money, and how long did it take to get there?
December 21.
So after this administration, it hadn't existed before.
No, they are correct, this had not existed. The language of a stabilization fund had existed for many, many years that I'm aware of, perhaps back to 2013, if not earlier.
It was just never funded.
It was, and I'm not aware that it was ever funded. The language was there, but it was never funded. It would be a graph that looks like, or a chart that looks like this. It was definitely in the backup.
That's the folder.
While we're searching for it, Commissioner Stokes, do we want to speak to it?
Sure.
So are we looking at my page 37 in the backup, I guess is what, can we pull it back up?
Yeah, use yours, because mine is
It's not in that
definitely
folder.
older.
We're talking about, is that the graph you're talking
No,
about?
that graph is flat because we haven't,
Right,
once
then
we
the next
established
one
the rate
is the-
stabilization, nothing's coming out.
What if we go
I
to
think
the
we're looking
agenda
sort
and
of the
scroll through
combined
the
graph
agenda?
of
Right.
And
our
it'll be in
checking
there,
and our
because it's definitely,
savings account.
we submitted it,
Yeah.
it was
It's the
printed
next
off,
one.
That
off the website for me, so I have it.
I have mine, it was dropped off at my office.
We have them.
We're gonna go to the actual agenda item
Right.
and pull it off of that.
But long story
Because we just
short,
had it.
when you combine our checking and saving account, we are above the swim
Try
lane.
that,
We have
see what it
swum
is.
out of our lane. So it's time,
I'm just saying.
I think, to
Let's-
transfer the money over.
Let's go to the agenda and pull right off the
So we
agenda.
can hit our max and then say,
agenda.
all right, we've hit our max, next step is, what do our rates need to be
There's
so
the
that we
agenda
don't
and,
continue to
what's that?
spend
Yeah.
further away from our swim lane? Yes.
Okay, so I'll keep explaining what's going on. So in addition to the $2.5 million that's in the stabilization fund, which we, anecdotally call our savings account, we then have the monthly or actual working account for PCA balance, which is another
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
$1.384 million. So the checking account has $1.384 million, which is going to increase by about $300,000. There's some settlement funds which are going to be moved over. We'll take that to about 1.6 million. So you take the $1.6 million and change that's in the, what we would call the checking account, plus the $2.5 million that's in the stabilization fund. That gets you a rather substantial amount, above 4 million, if I remember correctly. So the question then is, if you look at what's actually happening, is we are.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Ed. I just added the page to the presentation folder, Alfonso.
Okay, thank you. Oh my God. Let's go. Okay,
So if we look at the rate of growth of the checking account, it's growing by about $300,000 a month. So the suggestion would be that really puts us above the upper limit of where we would like to be in the swim lane, so it's time to trim it back. And the first strategy would be to lower the rate. Consider as a policy matter, do you want to lower the rate so we stop it from growing and try to stabilize it? Trying to stabilize is difficult because you're chasing a target, which is gas prices, which we don't actually know what they will be. We have a proxy, which is what the market's trading at. But we can see, and I know that at least for 3 of you, when we met in one-on-one, during the one-on-one meetings, the prices were going down for natural gas during the meeting because we had the live screen up and we could see what the prices were. And the prices, I believe, are lower today than they were a week ago. I think I saw numbers come off between 5 to 8% a few days ago, and then into the low 2s now if I look at the prices for next month. So the first thing we would suggest is that we consider reducing the rate to stop the rate of growth. No need to continue to grow the account. The second thing that you would consider would be to move approximately $1 million over to the stabilization fund, which would then take it from 2.5 million up to 3.5 million. You would still have roughly $600,000 in the checking account, which would be a nice cushion to go through as we head towards summer months. Gas prices, as I said, continue to come down. That doesn't mean that there may not be some excursions where they go up. So for example, about a week and a half ago, or a week ago, there was a severe cold snap in large parts of the country, and our gas prices went from, on the daily market, from 3-something into the $13, $14, $15 range, right? It hit 18 in one day, but then it
And
came,
that's just really because of the increased demand. I mean, it's really,
it's a
it's
combination
a
of,
bit of a,
yeah, increased demand and the perception of potential problems in pipeline infrastructure, moving that much gas in very cold weather through compressor stations. But it's increased demand, and then it comes back down. So that's what's happened. So we're in very good shape. The public should be very happy about what's been accomplished, is that we're now talking about having millions in the stabilization fund that did not exist when we started this path together. So that we're in a good place. So I'll yield to you folks so you can have a policy discussion, ask some
I
questions.
see Ms. Stokes has her light on.
Yeah, not to be too picky, but I
Oh, go ahead. It suits you.
would reverse the order from one stop. Yes, I mean, these are both goals. We want to stop, we want to provide relief to our customers. We don't need to charge them any more than we need to. So we want to stop the growth. That's not what we're in here for. We want this to be a true pass-through cost. And moving to the stabilization fund. So based on like some of the policy discussions we've had around the stabilization fund in the past, and trying to set precedent for commissions in the future, I think the first thing we should do is transfer the money over, because we don't want other commissioners saying, oh, this feels like a good time to lower rates, let's lower them, when we haven't reached that ceiling. So my brain is like, step one, transfer the $1 million over, we hit that ceiling. Step two, does it look like it's time to lower rates, which I think is yes. So that's where I'm at with this. So I strongly support, I don't know if it needs to be part of the motion or just direction to staff. Probably part of the motion is to be very clear that we want to move $1 million to the rate stabilization fund over. And then as far as the options for lowering the PCA, I would go with the, not the alternate, but the suggested one. Because by the time this takes place, we will have another month of growth under our belts. So you're saying we're gaining an extra $300,000 a month, roughly speaking, but whatever rates we set this into effect aren't going to take place until March. So we will have all of February at the current rate, where we'll continue to be building up. So I think we should, as quickly as possible, get that down to the pass-through rate, which would be the first suggestion. The base, thank you. My
So the-
base rate, base case, there's too many bases.
Yeah, so the base case that we laid out for you, which is at just above the motion line in the staff report, makes reference to decreasing the bill per 1,000 kilowatt hours by $6.95 per month under the base case.
And that means for the 3 months, the next 3 months, we would be charging the customers exactly what we're predicting to pay. What we're predicting to pay.
What we're predicting to pay, yes.
No, we will never charge them exactly what we pay, but by doing that, we're showing our residents and our customers that we are finally ready to truly bring this down to a pass-through cost for you.
I think that's a very good way of explaining it, and then, of course, we continue to monitor it monthly and keep you in the loop so you can make adjustments as are necessary.
Which we hope we won't have to do, because that's the whole point of having the stabilization fund.
Correct, you'll
is
still
that
have over
we have enough in reserves that we shouldn't have to turn around and adjust our rates again.
Correct. I believe that this is a very prudent approach, and we're fortunate to be in a position to be having this discussion.
It's wonderful to be able to talk about that. Mr. McCoy?
Seems like I had something and then it evaporated a little bit. And so what are the two amounts of the base and the alternate one? I noticed that one was based on predicting out 3 months, I think that's what was called the base, and the other was predicting out 6 months, which made me a little more nervous, because further out you predict, the higher the uncertainty, seems to me.
That's the alternate case.
which is the alternate. And what were the two amounts of the change to PCA? One was 6 and one would have been about 8 then?
Closer
Well,
to 7.
Yeah, $6.95 versus $4.46. I think if I'm answering the question correctly.
And the
And
base would lower by 6 and the
Right.
other by roughly 4.
by 4 and change, and that, the one that goes out 6 months is, and I'll take a shot at this, is reflective of the fact that gas prices, natural gas prices might be a little bit higher in the summer months because of the additional power generation that's on the system. But right around that time, we'll, you know, but we get into the July or August timeframe, we'll have our first lump of solar coming in, which will be pretty close to where energy prices are, so it may not see much of an effect. That's, depends on where gas prices are this summer. But we'll see a step down in natural gas exposure coming in July.
Well, I'm fine with going with the base one, so the roughly 6 lowering. I would, what's that?
Roughly 7.
It's 6 and change.
$6.95.
Right.
Oh, okay, all right, I misheard, sorry. Roughly 7, and I would highly encourage us to kind of link that together, that we add the 3 that goes into the storm, so we're still lowering by roughly 4, I believe. Keep track of it. So we're lowering, but we're also planning ahead for storms at the same time, so that's all good, and we're making the PCA become much closer, or as close as we're likely to ever get, you know, within the ability to predict, to making it a real pass-through, which I think has been a policy goal of ours for a while. So we're getting a bunch of things, rate stabilization, storm fund, and pass-through all into shape, which is pretty cool.
Mr. Diaz?
Yeah, when we talked about this on a one-on-one, that was my takeaway too, is, you know, you're looking at what's life gonna be like in June 24, and,
Hot.
it's pretty cool right now. Usually the pendulum goes, you know, right for it to swing in the other direction, and so, I agree, get that cap immediately, 2 to 3 months, and, you know, it's a little bit stressful. This summer is gonna be really interesting, but a lot of people follow fantasy football, and Mr. Liberty has us following, you know, gas price futures, and waging bets on it or whatever, because, right now, you know, something's gonna happen in the summer, and maybe when that solar kicks on, like, maybe it'll be noticeable. Maybe we'll see, our curve might be a little bit flatter than others when that kicks on, but, you know, who knows? So, I'm 4 to 3 months.
It's not day trading, it's.
Yeah.
Ms. Malenka, do you have a comment? We can't see you.
Yeah, I've been following. I'm in agreement with everybody. The 6 months makes me a little nervous because again, we don't know what's gonna happen, you know, every other day when you turn on the news, it's something different. And I think that it's a good way for us to say thank you to the residents who have helped us create this rate stabilization fund and the storm fund. If we can, the bigger discount that we can give them on their bills right now to get them through, I think that's the right thing to do.
Thank you. Okay, do I have a motion?
I will make,
Go ahead.
okay.
I just want to make sure, because the way that this is written, it says effective May 1.
I was gonna fix that in my motion.
Okay, I just make sure.
All right,
In the detailed breakdown, it does say March 1 in the line item.
Yeah.
But, so yes. So I wanna make a motion to transfer $1 million to the rate stabilization fund and approve the PCA as presented under the base case effective March 1st.
I will second that.
is that all you need, Mr. Liberty?
Aye?
Yes.
I just wanna make sure that,
Okay.
just while we're making motions, let's make a complete motion. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. New business, A. Approval of agreements with Plan B Solutions, I love that, LLC and Rheinhausen Manufacturing to furnish and install dissolved gas monitors for analysis of the condition of substation power transformers.
I'll give a little technical explanation as a director, and so why are we monitoring dissolved gases?
My thing is, do we need it, do we have the money, let's do it.
Yeah, yes, we do need it, yes, we have the
Yeah, I
money,
mean, that's,
but,
I'm not
my-
second guessing.
monitoring what we call dissolved gases inside of a transformer. So we take an oil sample from the transformer and we check that sample for specific gases. If they're present, that's an indication that there's a breakdown of insulation or a problem within the transformer itself. Being able to do that on a live basis, monitoring it continually, ensures that you're catching it as it's happening and not many, many months after it's happening.
Sensor that you drill into this thing and mount,
Correct.
or.
No drilling.
No.
That'd be bad.
No,
No warranty, doesn't like drilling.
Yeah, no.
It actually goes on the test port of the transformer.
It's got one,
Alright.
okay, yeah.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Well, you just-
I'm sorry, who was the motion?
Mr. McVoy,
Thank you.
her presence just makes us feel calm, like you're in order, it's wonderful. Number 2, approval of contract with Meyer Utility Structures LLC to provide spun concrete transmission poles for new transmission line installations for the electric utility system hardening and reliability improvement programs. Mr. Liberty, do we need it?
Yes, we do.
Do we have the money to pay for it?
Yes, we do.
Do I have a motion?
Doesn't-
I'm-
Doesn't the science nerd have a question?
Well,
No?
don't
I love
encourage.
the net, yeah, don't
Don't
encourage
encourage
them.
him.
Please,
Um,
they're 20,000 a pop, but they're also pretty big poles.
These are very large, very, very large poles, and they're designed for Category 5 storms. And these will go out to the canal location where we have some relocations necessary for the poles out there to accommodate the second incoming line.
Okay,
This would be our wires on these poles, but we have to move them and go to stronger poles.
okay, so,
Motion to approve?
motion approved, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, might need a second of that.
I think Mr. McVoy did? No,
It was like a tie.
oh, well, you guys fight it out. Item C is Schweitzer Engineering Laboratories, Inc.'s Blue Frame Software Contract Proposal to manage the EU devices on the Operational Technology Network. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? What? Okay, Ronaldo, you can have the second. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you very much. D, resolution, oh, now we're getting legal. Resolution 3-2024, 2020 Consolidated Utility Revenue Bond Reauthorization. Good night. Excellent work. Okay, D. Who's gonna propose it? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Now you guys gotta work on that.
You're gonna need an analyzer, it's down to the millisecond.
Come on, it's
It's
P,
not a
it's
race.
pH and chlorine stuff.
All
It's
right,
my-
we'll give you that one.
Thank you. So we have a motion, we have a second, do we have any?
Who did we give the second to?
We're gonna give the
Ronaldo.
second to Mr. Diaz.
Okay.
And he'll feel really good about that, because it's about chlorine and that's his thing. Anyway, I kid. Do we need any discussion or do?
Sam wants to tell us something.
Sam, do you wanna tell us anything?
No.
No? All in favor?
Aye.
I will.
Aye.
Aye, thank you very much. Item E, resolution, what? It's
That's
time
what
to
he
go
wrote.
home, I know. E, resolution 2024-2020, non-ad valorem consolidated utility revenue bond reauthorization. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second? Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I love when this happens. Resolution 2024-2022, consolidated utility revenue bond reauthorization. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Do you all in favor? Aye. You're good, Sam. Jackie, your presence makes us feel good. Change order number 1 for Global Tech Inc., adding additional vessels and membranes to existing reverse osmosis trains. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second? Well, Mr. Diaz made the motion, so.
Then I'll second.
You can second it, okay, great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Much. Number 8, H, change order number 2 with Global Tech for a flash mixer improvement. Do I have a motion?
Not as sexy as
And no, you're right, I'm gonna tell you, the membranes kinda got me. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
By Mr. Diaz, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Ms. Stokes, thank you very much. All in favor? Aye. Aye, next, task order number 17, sounds like a song. For Montrose and Associates to provide, what was that?
It didn't catch me right away, and then I
Yeah,
got it.
task order, no, I'll start over again to be official. Task
But you gotta
order,
sing it.
yeah, well, not tonight. Task order number 17 for Montrose and Associates, Inc. to provide design and bid phase to services for the 10th and 13th Avenue North project. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Do I have a second?
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
That includes plant recruitment,
Thank you.
natural landscape.
I certainly appreciate it, the staff appreciates it, and I'm sure the residents will. Thank you.
Absolutely,
you.
thank you so much. Do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Have a good evening, everybody.